Did you wake up one morning and be like, I want to start selling weed? How do you make that determination of this is what you want to do?
So I have no desire to grow and be the biggest. My balance sheet looks better than some of the big boys.
So for the listener who's watching this and they're just like, weed is bad, like we shouldn't legalize, there should be no business around it.
It's legal in Miami, right?
It is not legal in Miami. So Florida,
I was just at a shop
I bet you were.
Okay, I was just at a shop in Miami. Yeah. Why are taxes so high on cannabis?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Melon and Money Show. And for the first time in Melon and Money history, I'm actually going to read the bio because our guest has just done that much. Okay. Hope Wiseman, CEO and founder of Wiseco, is an entrepreneur and advocate for equity in the cannabis industry. In 2018, at just 25 years old, Hope made history as the youngest Black woman in the U.S. to own a cannabis dispensary, launching Mary and Main in Prince George's County, Maryland. Yeah. Under her leadership, Mary and Main has become a community pillar for education, access, and opportunity in the local cannabis community, earning her features in Black Enterprise, Essence, and many other publications. And I lied, I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but you get the point. With no further ado, Hope Wiseman, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you, George. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's a full circle moment, actually, because I was actually looking back. I was trying to think, how long, when did we originally connect? I was thinking, I went to our DMs. I was like, I think it was 2020, but I can't remember how.
2019, 2020. So we had just opened Mary and Main.
Right.
And I was starting to make a little bit of money, and I was just thinking about the future.
Yep.
Thinking about how I can set myself up for success. And it's funny, because now I'm actually making a little bit of money, and I wasn't making any money then, which was funny because you kind of told me that. You were like, you don't have no money for real, so you should budget.
But you know what's funny though? That is the same thing. And he's talking,
yeah.
But what happens is once that happens, I don't know if the clarity unlocks. It's that's all I had to do. And then after that moment, you just. Yeah. I mean, we're out of here, right? Yeah. But so I remember that we ended up connecting. I went through our DMs and I saw that you were like, hey, I'm about to meet this other advisor. But I know this is what you do. Can we have a conversation? And then kind of the rest is history. We've been connected ever since. Yeah. And you've just been so dope to see you rise and grow. And it's been super amazing. Thank you. Honored to have you on the show.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of my first questions is, how does one go into knowing they want to get into the cannabis industry? Did you wake up one morning and be like, I want to start selling weed? How do you make that determination of this is what you want to do?
Absolutely not. Okay. I never thought I would be selling weed. Okay. Legally. Yeah. Ever. Yeah. Right. No. So I was an econ major in school. Okay. Also raised by a wonderful woman who's in the room.
Who's in the building?
Yes, she is.
Yes.
Shout out to moms.
Shout out to my mama. Who taught me to definitely look for entrepreneurial opportunities, constantly talked about building wealth for our family, and began speaking to me about how we can teach other people about what we've learned. First, really, it was starting within our own family, and then talking about outside of that. So for me, the cannabis industry it was timing. So I had just graduated from college. I was working full time at an investment bank in Atlanta. And I just, I'm sitting on the trading floor. I was in equity institutional sales. So I was a sales trader, but I was sitting on the trading floor. And I'm looking up at CNBC, and they're talking about cannabis. I'd always smoked weed. So,
I was right on my alley. Particular activating system right on the TV screen. Yeah.
Right. They're talking about weed at work. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, oh. And then they were just talking about the growth opportunity in the space, how it was growing at the time a 30% CAGR, which now is growing still at 20%. It's one of the fastest growing industries that we have right now. Yeah. So I just knew the economic opportunity. We all know what happened with prohibition, and actually cannabis is following almost the same exact timeline. So I feel like, I had a kind of a roadmap of what was going to happen. And I understood that if we didn't get in at the ground floor level as Black, not independently wealthy folk, this would be the only chance. And really, now that I look back, the garage was closing, and I kind of just slid
right in there.
Because it's pretty much closed now. Yeah. It's not closed, but it's just much more difficult now.
Yeah. And so, I mean, one of the great things about being a pioneer in the space is that you get a chance to be early adopter. But one of the challenging things is you deal with all the bullshit, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the hurdles? And I know it's probably a laundry list, but just what are some of the hurdles and adversities that you experienced, like getting into this industry?
You know, so early getting into the space, there were no advocates to really talk about how if you place certain requirements in an application process, how it really, you know, knocks some people out of the running, right?
Yeah.
So early application processes like the one that I did in Maryland
Yeah.
in 2015 required you to locate a property, have control of the property. So that means own it, have a lease on it, or have an option to purchase it, all of which costs money that you have to pay on before you win a license.
Right.
Early application processes often also required you to show that you had control of finances and money. So whether that meant in your bank account, in an investor's bank account that you had a signed agreement with, or some type of, you know, people did the show money thing where they're saying like, essentially like a promissory note or, you know, a LOI to put in the money if you were to meet certain qualifications, most of the time, which if you win. All of these usually cost money, either in legal agreements or actually having to pay someone to show money for you, or all of these things. Very, very expensive. Some states like New York required surety bonds of millions of dollars. The original New York process required $5 million.
Sheesh.
A surety bond of $5 million. So very difficult processes, very extensive writing. So think like applying for a grant, you know, or a government contract, a big federal contract.
Yep.
That's essentially what these processes were. So really, really complicated technical writing skills needed, and the actual subject matter expertise, because, you know, a dispensary definitely has a retail is a hard business. A dispensary is a hard business, but let's take it up a level with processing and manufacturing. That takes a level of, you know, you have to have like really a chemistry background, you know, and then cultivation on top of that. People think it's not just putting some stuff in the ground. These people are running very sophisticated, automated systems. So yeah, I mean, it was very, very difficult then. And advocates like myself have, over the years, talked to legislators like, this is impossible to, and then especially if y'all want to see black people. Black people cannot compete with that. People are spending millions of dollars before they even win the license, and it's all at-risk capital.
I'm about to say, like, it sounds to me like not
win it.
only was it really capital intensive, you're doing all this to still could potentially be told no. Like, hey, sorry, you can't sell weed. Like, I got this shop, I got all these things. Like, what you mean? So that's a lot of risk to take on, especially to not have a guarantee if you're even going to win the license.
Yep. A lot of that has changed now because we pretty much said this is not, you know, equitable at all. And social equity has become a pillar in the cannabis industry. I know a lot of other industries, DEI is being attacked, even throughout our government, all of that good stuff. Cannabis, it's like a pillar in the industry.
I was just about to ask that, so I'm glad.
Most laws won't even get passed unless they include some form of social equity in it.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. And I think that's part of the advocacy piece. Like, I'm sure some of you really wanted to make sure that was happening as you were going through the trenches of seeing just how hard this was.
Definitely, 100%.
Do you think like the government doesn't want everyday people to be able to open dispensaries? They want to take over the market and sell it themselves and get all the profit from something that was illegal first, and then they made it legal. Now they're making it impossible for other people to open dispensaries so they can come in. Do you think like it's a ploy like that, or?
So I don't necessarily think it's the government that is attempting to do this. I think the government is, you know, they're victim to the stigma that was very, very purposefully placed around this plant to keep it, you know, as something that was illegal. I think that this industry is really being attacked by adjacent industries that lose to, or stand to lose a lot by this industry being legalized. And being able to profit from. So even back when it first, you know, when the war on drugs first started and when prohibition first started, really cannabis was being attacked by like the textile industries, the pharmaceutical industry, industries that felt like plastics, all these things that, you know, industrial hemp can replace. And then the pharmaceutical industry, I mean, although they had cannabis already in medicines.
Yeah.
They understood that people were using it, like the actual plant itself, as an alternative form of medicine. You know,
you don't want to mess up big pharma.
You don't want to mess those industries up. So there's a lot of industries that stood to lose. So you can pad some pockets, and then all of a sudden you have the right people vouching for you. And that's how prohibition really started. And we're seeing the same things now. But now the stigma is so systemically entrenched within our culture and our government that it's, I think we're seeing new people come into office. So things are changing. And also most of America has, said that they're favorable on cannabis. They understand, you're not going to, it's not going to come and bite you.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I know you mentioned that you felt like the garage door was closing, right? You got in. Do you still feel like there are opportunities for people of color to get into this space in some capacity and thrive and be a new path for entrepreneurship?
100%. So I still think that there are a lot of pathways to entry. A lot of states are still developing laws and programs. And like I said, most states are requiring social equity to be a part of their process.
Got you.
If you can qualify for social equity and what that means something different every single
What
state.
does social equity mean? I'm the only person that, I have no idea what that means.
What that means, like...
Oh, okay.
No. There's a definition. So essentially social equity, like I said, it really, every state defines it differently, but essentially is somebody who has been disproportionately harmed by prohibition or the war on drugs in some way. In some states, this is defined as someone who has had some type of criminal past with it. And there are restrictions on, what exactly that can mean. Most of the time, it's nonviolent misdemeanor charges with cannabis, possession charges, usually not distribution or anything higher than that. Or it means living in an area. So like in Maryland, they gave actual zip codes that were the cities that were most disproportionately harmed, and you had to have lived in those cities for 5 out of the time period that prohibition was taking place or the war on drugs was taking place. In some states, it's, you had to have gone to a college that needed 40% of the students were eligible for a Pell Grant. Like they come up with these different qualifications. The goal is certainly to make sure that Black and brown people get these licenses. However, that's usually unconstitutional to put in a law to say these licenses are exclusively for Black people. They can't do that. They've been sued. Most of these state processes, they get, the state gets sued, or the commission or administration, whoever puts the applications out, they get sued as people lose because of how much money and time and effort folks go through to be in it. So social equity is essentially, supposed to be Black people.
Yeah, but I guess the reason they do that is that they want to give the people who've been negatively affected by the illegalization of weed the best chance to now use it in their best favor and benefit from it, because they've been
a lot of times it's the people who were selling it before who created this market that is so fast growing because it's not actually growing, it's already here.
They didn't know.
We're just going from the illicit market to the legal market. We call it the legacy market. We don't like to call it the black market or anything like that because black is not bad. But the legacy market, it's already
it's been happening.
And it's not gone, and it's not going to be gone for a long time till the laws make it so that it's affordable to everyone.
So for the listener who's watching this and they're just like, weed is bad, like we shouldn't legalize, there should be no business around it, like what are some of the misconceptions that you continue to see about cannabis as a whole, and that can maybe just shatter someone's limiting belief about how this can be beneficial for the world?
Well, one of the biggest things, I think the reason the stigma, it's so easy to perpetuate it is because of the smell of cannabis, right?
Gotcha.
So I think one of the first things that I like to tell people is there are so many different ways to use and consume cannabis. Like inhalation is one way. You can eat it, you can put it under your tongue, you can use it as a transdermally, you can, there are other ways to use cannabis that don't have the smell. Okay. And then, the biggest way I've been able to connect with folks are definitely talking about, everyone knows someone that has had cancer or potentially someone that has Alzheimer's or someone that has seizures that has been able to benefit from cannabis. I think cancer is probably the most widespread. And being able to talk about experiences, you know, even with my own mother who was able to use cannabis while she went through her cancer battle to have a betterment of life through that, as well as actually heal ailments that she was feeling, you know? So I think that talking about like scientific or even anecdotal stories from people that they can relate to, that's been the easiest way. Then right now we have a lot of research showing about what legalization actually looks like in states. We have 2 senators right now that introduced a bill to stop. Cannabis is potentially going to be rescheduled from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Okay.
Right?
And what does that mean inherently?
That means essentially Schedule 1 controlled substances are like heroin, all that good stuff, right? And they're saying that they have no medical efficacy alone, and essentially they have a high potency for addiction.
Okay.
Which we know cannabis, you know, at the end of the day, if you're taking heroin, you stop taking that,
you have bigger problems than you stop smoking.
You have a real problem. You might die. Actually, you know, that's not going to happen with cannabis. So it's probably going to be rescheduled to 3. Okay. Schedule 3 changes a lot for the industry. Okay. Taxes. We have a tax thing. We haven't gotten there, but essentially,
we're going to get there.
Yeah. There's a tax thing that changes. It will also probably open the door for more research, probably open the door for fair banking, all that good stuff. There are 2 senators right now that introduced a bill to stop that. And they are saying that cannabis essentially has no, you know, it doesn't make families better, it doesn't make you healthier. Just a whole bunch of like this, reefer madness propaganda. Essentially, it sounds just like it sounds actually insane. So, there are a lot of people that are still under that belief and they just don't believe it. I don't know how though. I mean, they people even say that like it could make communities unsafe or all this. Not true. No state that has legalized cannabis and almost the entire country has some type of cannabis law. No state has experienced a heightened,
crime rate. How many states is weed legal in right now?
So there are over 30 that have medical laws, and there's about 22, I think, or so that have adult use. Don't quote me. Those are like rough numbers. But something
and can
like
you
that.
only open shops in those 22 states that have adult use or?
So, no. So medical states have legal stores as well. You just have to have a medical card to shop at those.
Gotcha.
There's no interstate commerce, right? So your medical card in Massachusetts is not going to work. Nothing works in Texas because it's not legal. But it's not going to work in Maryland. You know? So everything is state by state, and every state classifies how they do it very differently. So the medical conditions you might be able to qualify for in one state are not going to be the same in another.
Okay. Got you. So I'll just give you my experience. So I moved to California in 2020. I think when weed was just around the time weed was getting legalized there, and there's all these, cannabis stores, MedMen, all these, stores like that, popping up everywhere. And like a year later, more, and a year later, more. So like, is there, when states allow weed to be legal, do you see a mass adoption in stores opening up everywhere? And is there still opportunities for people to open up in like California, or should people wait for another state to adopt it before they open up a store, in your opinion?
Every state does this completely differently. So this is why I tell people all the time, if you're interested in cannabis, especially if your state has not legalized yet, get involved in the legislative process. Talk about what you want to see. Go talk to these legislators. If you're 2-3 years out, you can really make impact. I say that to say some states and most states limit the amount of licenses that they give out. States like California, New Jersey, Massachusetts is also like this. They give a lot more power to the local municipalities. So they tell the local municipalities, you can opt out if you want. You can say, I don't want any license types here, or maybe I only want cultivation and processing because I don't want any, customer facing businesses in my county. They also get to choose zoning rules. Sometimes they can make the zoning a little wonky, so it's like almost impossible. Some local municipalities in certain states are allowed to have their own application processes, like California is much like that. So you saw a lot coming on because California didn't put a state level cap.
Okay.
Now you have local municipalities in California starting to do it. A lot of them have opted out completely. But California is the biggest state-run market in the country. It's doing like $3-4 billion a year.
Wow.
Just in comparison, Maryland, the state that I'm in, which in my opinion, humbly, I think we have the best market for the entrepreneur and for the customer in the country. Okay. If not the best, we up there.
What makes you say that?
Because they just did it right. We have the right amount. They really studied the supply and demand, and they have the right amount of businesses in Maryland. You know, there's not an oversaturation, but then there's still enough supply and there's still enough competition where we feel it. You know, like we're constantly, you know, surveying what other people are doing. It's not like we're just like, oh, we exist, so we're good. Nah, still work. Yeah, and Maryland's that.
Healthy competition is always the best thing for the consumer, right? Because it forces you to be better, right? Because you got somebody who's a competitor. What do you see on the horizon in the next 24 to 36 months in the cannabis space that has you excited? Because obviously you're a pioneer in the space, so you have to kind of look at all the pieces on the chessboard, you know, before anybody else can see it. What are some things that have you excited about the trajectory of the industry over the next 36 months?
I'm always excited about emerging markets, so new markets coming on. We have, I think, Kentucky, Minnesota, North Carolina is talking about Carolinas, right? You know, the CBD world is huge in North Carolina, but North Carolina is talking about it. South Carolina is throwing it out there. I don't think it's going to happen. Florida is probably going to make another run for legalization.
It's legal in Miami, right?
It is not legal in Miami. So Florida,
I was just at a shop
I bet you were.
Okay, I was just at a shop in Miami.
Yeah, Florida has medical cannabis. It's
they didn't
legal.
Ask me for a card at all.
They are not licensed, you know, and that's okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to say that's okay, but you know, this is America, and I love our entrepreneurs and I love what we doing.
Okay.
I'm over here all the way in the white though.
You ain't messing with none of that gray. You ain't messing with none of that gray.
You know, more power to them.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I think I heard this one time before. This might not be true, but like, if you feel like your state is going in that direction, getting into the kind of like the CBD space early, kind of like put you ahead of the curve, because then when it happens, you can kind of like flip the switch. Is that true or no?
Yes or no? Yes and no. Here's why I'm gonna lean more towards no.
Okay.
One, let's say you went out and you got a storefront and all this stuff.
Right.
You remember what I was just talking about with the zoning and all that
true,
stuff?
true,
You
true.
don't even know what that's going to end up looking like, to be honest. And likely, you're probably not going to be in a spot that is good, unless you have some inside knowledge, which some people do, or you know, they have the ability and the connections to be able to influence that enough to make sure that they're good.
Gotcha.
So that, and then I'd say also, honestly, the CBD user, someone who's going to a CBD shop, granted, in states where it is not legal and that's kind of your only option. Yeah. Okay. But likely the CBD user is not going to be your THC user.
True. Yeah. Wait. And
vice versa.
What is the difference? The main difference between CBD and THC?
So in reality, the THC and CBD come from the same plant.
Okay.
It's all cannabis. It's all cannabis. We drew this line in the sand and we created two different types of cannabis. Okay. Which in reality, this is not true. We have cannabis that is, you know, THC cannabis, like that's what we call it, but it's really, this cannabis on this side has CBD in it, CBN, CBG, there are hundreds of cannabinoids. THC and CBD are just the ones we talk about the most. They have the most effects. And then on this side, with the hemp side, it is less than 0.03% THC.
Okay.
So a lot of the argument has been they didn't define anything else but 0.03% THC. There are different forms of THC in the plant. Also, chemists have figured out ways to manipulate other cannabinoids, so like CBG, CBN, into intoxicating chemicals. So essentially, THC is the only intoxicating part of the plant. That's
Got
the
it.
part that's psychoactive.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say that CBD is not psychoactive because it can relax you and all
Yeah.
that, but it's not intoxicating.
Gotcha.
You are not going to feel high
Right.
using
Off
a
CBD, you
product.
more
Maybe
relaxed.
or
Okay.
calmer, like a lavender would do you or something. But you're not going to be like,
Yeah.
like, what's going on? Not off of CBD.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Okay. Now let's talk about these taxes on marijuana, because when I was living in California, and I don't smoke often, but like I would like smoke at a shop. I'll like order it to the house, and then they'd be like, it costs this much, and then the tax would be like almost 20% of the
LA
bill.
County is 32%.
It was ridiculous. I'm like, yo, what is happening? Like, they don't tell you that when you're about to check out, but like, why are taxes so high on cannabis or on weed? Like,
Well, we're federally illegal still right now.
So
And
the
then,
state
like I
that
said,
okay.
Right. So it's twofold. We're federally illegal right now, and then we're a controlled one, controlled substance. Or I said controlled one. We're a scheduled one controlled substance. So those two things make it so that the federal government, a long time ago, some drug dealer, some kingpin was trying to pay taxes, and essentially they were like, all right, if you're going to pay taxes, that's cool, but you can't write anything off. So
Really?
we cannot write off any ordinary normal business expenses, essentially. Now the industry has found little workarounds and all that stuff because the 280E does not say explicitly cannabis companies can. It says control or schedule one and two.
Yeah.
Controlled substances cannot. So we have found workarounds. There's 471C that allows you to essentially portion off part of your business that does not include selling cannabis.
Gotcha.
Also, a lot of vertically integrated companies are able to put a lot of their expenses on to the entities that are not customer facing. So cultivation and processing, and they're able to write off things that way. But all of this is being challenged by the IRS. So constantly the industry is iterating kind of new strategies.
Yep.
It's very expensive because you got to get tax opinions from tax attorneys. You got to, find accountants that can do this.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
I remember when we were working together, you were telling me it was like that was a really big challenge, like finding an accountant that could even navigate the territory.
A lot of people think they can, but like a lot of people get into it and it's just like, this is too much. Even the accountant that I ended up working with, I worked with him for years. Yeah. And eventually, once we kind of like hit that inflection point in our business, he was like,
all right,
now, like, you're gonna have to find somebody else. Like y'all at a different point. It's really a nuanced space. I'm not gonna say it's the most difficult industry. There are a lot of difficult industries, but it's extremely nuanced.
Got it. Yeah.
So, do you see yourself expanding to other locations with your dispensary, or do you just see yourself diversifying your offerings within the cannabis industry?
More of the latter.
Okay.
So it's very interesting because, this is something that I battled with myself over the years, wanting to expand and grow. And a lot of early cannabis companies, like some of the MSOs are multi-state operators. This is what the industry usually calls like the big boys that are in a bunch of different states. A lot of them are publicly traded.
Gotcha.
A lot of MSOs started the same year I started, right? So in my mind, I'm like, oh, why am I not like them, and all that. What the funny part is, we have a very healthy balance sheet, right?
Gotcha.
Extremely healthy. And now I'm realizing, and this is something I tell all business owners, sometimes bigger is not better.
Right.
You'll probably be making less money and be more stressed, even if your top line looks amazing. Like, and I know it's
top line is not bottom line, though.
It doesn't mean, it really don't mean too much.
Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I am now. So all that being said, retail is insane. I don't know. Retail is a difficult industry.
Yeah.
It's also not, I feel like it's not something that's like stable, especially in the cannabis industry.
Yeah.
You kind of see cycles of what happens. Usually what happens is it's booming in the beginning for the early people. Then the industry kind of normalizes a little bit and then it might get even saturated. Then price compression happens, all this stuff. It's essentially a race to the bottom.
Gotcha.
In most states. I think that states are getting more creative on how they're doing it. Like I said, Maryland is doing a good job. They're at least making sure this race doesn't happen in 3 years. It might happen in 10 years.
Gotcha.
Which is fine because consolidation will happen. I'm gonna get a golden parachute. That's coming. That's coming.
Yeah.
I don't see me in this space for 20, 30 years.
Right.
Maybe as an investor,
Okay.
I see that.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I looked at this opportunity as the beginning of my wealth building journey.
Got it.
I never looked at this business and said, okay,
This is the end all be all.
I'm gonna make, I'm gonna have generational wealth off of this.
Yeah. Right.
This is just that thing that's like,
catalyst.
it's the catalyst.
So I guess that being said, do you kind of have an idea of like what that next step would look like?
Yeah, so I'm so excited. Wiseco over the years, Wiseco is our parent company. Wiseco over the years, we've explored so many different M&A opportunities where us acquiring, us applying for licenses in different places, doing all these things. And nothing has worked out over the past, it's been like 4 or 5 years of us attempting. Everything happens for a reason. So now Maryland just issued 125 or so social equity licenses, different license types. Someone on my team was awarded a processing license. Yeah, so we will be getting that on board, and we're partnering with a cultivator in Maryland. So we will essentially be able to create our own products to sell at our store. Our partner also has a dispensary or two. And, we're creating a small network where we can essentially, just say, okay, we're going to have a few exclusive products and we'll have some brands we'll sell to all the other stores. But yeah, I'm making me a nice little home in Maryland with my business. And like I said, I have no desire to grow and be the biggest. Yeah. My balance sheet looks better than some of the big boys.
Talk that shit.
Yeah.
It does. I seen some.
She starts like, ooh, I don't want that.
Yeah. I'm cool over here. And it's real quiet. I don't have to scream it.
Yeah. So I think that just comes with like the growth of being an entrepreneur, right? Like sometimes, we get into this game and it's like, oh, I want to be the biggest. I want to, crush it. I want to have a multi-9-figure, whatever the North Stars might be that aren't necessarily driven by what we thought we wanted, but it was something we saw, right? Yeah. And the more you grow, it's like, oh, well, what do I really want, right? And how do I have the lifestyle that I desire while also still having this business that I'm building and having fulfillment from it? So I think that's a part of the growth process too.
Yeah. Definitely. Everything happens in the right time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, can you let us know about this other business venture that we saw, Legal and Licensed?
Yes.
Yeah, what is that about?
So over the years, of course, everybody and their mother comes
literally. Can you help me?
I mean, you're the youngest. You're the youngest founder. Yeah.
You fought it for a while because I remember he's like, oh, I'm supposed to create this course. I'm supposed to create this information.
I've been fighting the course and community stuff for literally probably since like 2019.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But so many people ask me if, how I did it and all of that stuff. And then on top of that, I actually do get a lot of fulfillment from knowing that I helped people.
Yeah.
And I know I mentioned earlier about my mom always teaching me to look for wealth building opportunities for us, but she also charged me to help other people do that. So it always was in the back of my head, like I need to do this, because I can't talk to everybody. Yeah. I get, I'm overwhelmed as is running a
DMs,
business. The DMs, I get super overwhelmed. What I do when I'm overwhelmed too is like clam up.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, how do I reach more people at one time, legal and licensed? And the reason I named it that, more people come to me that are in the legacy market than anything.
Gotcha.
And I want to help them kind of transition to the legal market, because the illicit market is not going to be here forever. Right. Like just like now, people aren't selling moonshine out of the back of their cars.
Right.
It's just not happening.
Yeah.
It was like that at one point. It was just like how cannabis is. So there will be a point, and people are always like, no, people are always going to buy on the street. No, they won't. You'll be priced out. Just what I was talking about, price compression will happen and all of that. There will be no point of doing that. And then there will still be craft, cannabis on the market. So like literally all y'all selling out your house and all that stuff. That's cool.
Wrap it up, B.
Yeah.
Wrap that
like 10
up.
more years before it's like nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that makes sense. So one question that we ask every guest on the show, right? It's no secret that, we super serve people of color, right? And you've reached a significant level of success. Super proud of you. So my question to you is, what does being a melanin millionaire mean to you?
Being a melanin millionaire to me means that my kids get to start at a new level.
Yep.
They get to have an advantage. It means that my community can have something to look at and model after. It also means that I have a responsibility to pay it forward, to make my community better. I've been really thinking about what my life ambitions are.
Yeah.
And some of the things I want to do, I'm like, I'm gonna need a lot of money. And it's not even about like needing the money for me.
Right.
It's just gonna be like, if I want to be radical, I'm gonna have to, I know I'm gonna have to pay.
It takes money
It's
to make
gonna take
change.
money for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So that's what it means to me. It means I have a responsibility.
Love it. Anything else for you?
No, I mean, we learned more about cannabis on this show than I knew about in my entire life, and I just think that it's really eye opening, because from an industry that was looked down upon by society for so long, I think it's just very important that especially people of color understand the same industry that was holding us down, you now have ability to profit from, which I think is very important.
Yes.
I guess one more additional question I did have, because I feel like your experience is so diverse that it would be beneficial for our audience to hear this perspective. So if you could go back to the beginning of your journey and tell your younger self 3 things, right, before you got started, what would you tell her? What would you tell young Hope?
Oh, I would tell young Hope to really listen to your gut. That's your inner God talking. That's God telling you what to do.
Yep.
Listen. I would tell her to have fun, have as much fun as possible, because as you get older, the responsibilities
Stack
are
up.
insane. And everything you want to achieve comes with a lot of responsibility. I don't think I understood that early on.
Yeah.
So when the responsibility came, I felt like it was heavy. Versus now, it's like, do you want more? Because if you want more, that means more responsibility.
You understand it as part of the
I
recipe,
get it.
right? It's like it comes with it, right?
It comes with the territory.
Yeah.
And I'd say lastly, maintain your friendships, but don't be afraid to branch out, meet people, connections, and just having a network means everything. I was a little bit more reserved and I kind of wanted to keep to myself, whereas now, I keep a CRM for my personal connections. I'm like that. You know what I mean? And I got it telling me like, oh, you need to reach out to this person. You haven't talked to them in a year.
Yeah.
So like I'm taking it a step forward with my connections versus like early on I was so nervous and I didn't think I had to do that part. And you do. That has got me in more rooms than my talent or experience ever has.
Love 100%. It. Well, Hope, thank you so much for coming on the show, coming all the way down to Dallas, Texas. Even though I know it was cold.
Yeah. I'm appreciative to share with you guys.
Yeah. No, we appreciate you. I know our listeners are going to find a ton of value in this episode. And until next time, guys.
Peace.
Peace.